case you guys don't know, sitting on my left is the illustrious, famous, extraordinary Jeff Collar, Mr. Pre-Foreclosure. And he actually is a chef.
Was a chef.
I used to call him a cook, but he started correcting me on that.
That is correct.
Yeah. So there's
Please
a
use the right terminology.
So there's a difference, right?
Well, of course there is.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? I used to be. I was on a carnival for 3 years, and everybody used to say, "Are you with the circus?" Same thing. There's a big difference, you know.
That's right.
I never shoveled one bit of elephant dung the whole time I was on the carnival. All right, we're gonna get in pretty house business today. So if you've been asleep up to now, you better wake up, because this is the day you're going to learn how many people out there are making a lot of money by not renovating houses while renovating the ones that come in that are ugly. I'm going to go through this system. We're going to do a little bit of practicing. I'm going to try to get you to get it, because it's so important that you get it. And it's also just as important that you don't get it too complicated. And so my objective is try to make it simple enough to where you can understand it, because those of you who are already out there getting deeds know it ain't near as hard as it seems to until you get out. You won't know till you get out there and do it, but it's just not hard to get the deed from people who are predisposed to do business with you and have been pre-screened. Now, what kind of people are going to give you the deed? Sellers who need to sell, not sellers who want to sell. Today we're going to talk about pre-screening pretty houses. And I hope in that process you come to understand that you're not going to deal with everybody who calls you. And in fact, you're not going to deal with most of them. You're going to deal with a small minority of them who call you. I also hope that after the first day of locating prospects all day long, that you realize that the kind of marketing you do will determine the kind of calls you get. For example, if I send letters and stuff to people in foreclosure, could it be possible that they might be just a little bit more motivated than somebody who's got a house for sale in a gated community and asking full retail price? Hello? Okay.
Absolutely.
So the kind of target you choose will determine the kind of calls you get. Now, of course, we run a Yellow Pages ad, and for some reason, most of the people who call on that, I don't know that it tops 50%, but a good number of the people who call on that are quality leads. If you put signs out, you have a choice of where you put them, for example. You can put them in the lower income areas where you're going to get more calls, or you can put them in the gated communities or outside of them. They won't let you put them inside of them, where you'll get fewer calls, but you'll still get calls. If I know there's properties in foreclosure, if I know there's houses in foreclosure in that subdivision, and I place that sign where they can't miss it, maybe that will attract them to call me. In other words, I can create a marketing plan that is more focused on the kind of target I'm after. And incidentally, just for the record, I think all of you ought to be in the pre-foreclosure business. All of you. It's just too good. It's crazy to ignore the what is pre-foreclosure anyway? That's before they even get filed on, or after they get filed on, but before it goes to the courthouse steps. That's pre-foreclosure.
You know, Ron, you were talking about leads, just putting out a marketing campaign. Anymore, the way it is in our country now, about 40 to 60% of your leads are going to be behind on payments.
I find that true. I find that to be true. And in fact, I don't know. I'm going to let Donna answer this. My best guess is, or maybe we did yesterday. Can you guys tell me about what percentage of the calls coming in are behind on their payments for us? Are you trying to tell me that Jeff's statement was correct? Yes.
You're a good man, John.
40%. You guys had this figured out before. Yes. I thought it was a little higher than that, but what the heck? I can accept that. 40% of the calls coming in are behind on their payments. And if you remember the marketing campaign, we have a Yellow Pages ad. We put out signs. John is sending letters to vacant houses and I guess a few to foreclosures. I know we were sending some to foreclosures. Okay. And you told me a third of our calls are coming from the Yellow Pages. So, there you go, guys. Just get out there and get some stuff coming in. And if I were you, I'd work the pre-foreclosure market. I really, really, really would. You could have Richard send postcards to them. You could use Kathy's stuff to send letters to them, which I strongly recommend you do. Send letters to people, and their list is easy to get, especially after they've been filed. Well, it's not easy to get before they've been filed on, because there is no such list. You have to get them to call you. But once they've been filed on, that's an easy list to get. It's a matter of public record. There might be services in your city where you can get that list every single week. If not, worst case, you get somebody down at the courthouse to print you up a sheet on everybody that got filed that day and fax it to you. Anybody who checks titles or is down there every single day that works for any title company, collar them and pay them $5 a sheet to send them to you, or whatever it takes, $10, whatever it takes, and then tell them what areas you want them in. You don't even have to have every one of them sent. God, you couldn't take a city like Atlanta. The last thing you want to do is to get all the foreclosure leads in Atlanta. You wouldn't know what to do with them if you had them. John, how many foreclosures do we have a week in Jacksonville? You might even know this since you live there now. No?
We just are getting ready to start our mailing campaign.
You know, John, the last thing I want is all 250 of these people in foreclosure. I couldn't possibly handle them. Couldn't possibly handle them. And you guys many of you are sitting in here wondering how you're going to get one deal every so often. I'm telling you, you got a much bigger problem now. And that's how are you going to handle all these deals if you just do a portion of what we discussed the very first day. But you have a choice. You can focus in on just getting deals, or you can focus in on killer deals. Which one would you choose? Killer deals. And Jeff, you got some examples, I hope?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, nowadays we don't have any problem finding examples of killer deals. In fact, we're working on one right now. Ray's one of our partner deals right now is a house in southern Florida. It's a farm, actually. In fact, it's got 3,000 fruit trees on it. And it's worth 1.8, according to the seller. And the seller's asking 1.1. The seller owes $500,000, and he doesn't live in the property. And he tried leasing it out once, and you can imagine what happened with that. He spent thousands of dollars getting it back in shape. And he's asking 1.1, but he's already said, I'll let you take over my $500,000 loan and pay me the rest when you sell it. Ooh, yeah. That's not an abnormal deal. Not at all. And that's not even one in foreclosure. But the deals are huge out there, guys. You just got to open your eyes and let me get you above this low expectation hurdle and let you get out there and understand. Hope by the time the end of this day's over, you'll know they don't take any more money to do a big deal than it does to do a little deal if you do it Ron's way. If you do it my way. All right, let's get going. What does it mean to get the deed? You've been hearing that a lot, haven't you? Well, first, go back a page, 255. How do we profit in the pretty house business? For the sake of this boot camp, simple. Get the deed. Get the deed or get the door. Get the deed or get the door. Get the deed. Get the deed or get the door. What does it mean to get the deed? Well, it's simple. There's a piece of paper called a warranty deed to trustee. When you stick that in front of the seller and have them sign on the bottom line and hand it to you, you just got the deed. They transferred ownership of their house to you with that one piece of paper. And we're going to go through that exercise today. You have that piece of paper in that fancy envelope that says Ron's Forms on it. You don't have to go to an attorney to get a deed. You don't have to go to an attorney, ask them how to spell deed. The deed is in your envelope. When you put that piece of paper in front of an individual and they hand it back to you signed, you own their house. Just as legally, morally, and ethically as if you wrote them a check, paid off their loan, and done it down at the attorney's office. When you go to an attorney and they do a closing for you, they whip out a pile of papers, most of which is a mortgage, and all that crap somebody signs and all those disclaimers. And in that pile somewhere is a warranty deed. They put the warranty deed in front of the person across the table selling the house. They sign it, hand it back to the attorney. The exact same thing happens down there that happens in their living room or in their kitchen on their table. They sign the deed, give it up, title transferred. That's all there is to getting the deed. It is that simple. Subject to means if there's a loan on the property, and there almost always is, you are not assuming that loan. You're taking over that loan. So subject to is a synonym for taking over the loan. You either assume it and accept liability for it, or you take it over. Subject to means you're buying the property subject to the underlying financing. It's a national term that you'll hear a lot of now that you're in the inner circle. So which is better, assuming or taking subject to? Taking subject to. When will you guys assume a loan?
Never.
You've been listening to my courses. The answer is never. There is never a good reason to assume a loan. Even the old FHA and B loans, the VA loans that don't require assumption, you don't assume them, your land trust assumes them. You will never personally assume a loan. The next page is an example. There's really three major types of deals you're going to do when you're getting the deed. In fact, if you'll look at page 257, you'll see a very simple example, a normal example, of a property with one mortgage on it. The seller wants little or no money, and they're willing to just give you their house in exchange for what? Debt relief. All they want is out. All they want is peace of mind. They want a quick fix. They want to get rid of the debt. They don't want to get up and think about that payment anymore. Or they want to get rid of the house that their spouse lived in, or that a relative died in. Are they moving? Or they got transferred, or they lost their job, or they got downsized. Or they want a bigger home, or they build a new one, and all those reasons that are totally irrelevant. The only thing I care about is they want out and I want in. I don't care if they ever even tell me why they're selling. It's of no importance to me. In that example, there's a $138,000 loan on the property. I'm simply taking over the debt. And in this case, I wrote a check for $1,000. I will tell you, in real life, there's no way I'd write a check for $1,000 to take over a $138,000 loan on a $150,000 house. And in fact, quite opposite is true. I'd probably getting the seller to write me a check to take over this property. Because I'm giving them what they're looking for. A fast, easy solution to get rid of the debt. And they're not giving me really what I'm looking for. And that's a house with a boatload of equity. And $12,000 ain't a boatload of equity. In fact, $12,000 doesn't even get my molecules in my brain stirred up anymore. Now, there was a time when I'd have done something illegal to get $12,000. But that ain't the time. This ain't the time. $12,000 does not, that's not even worth messing with for me. For many of you, it's a home run. But it won't be long before you'll discover that deal may or may not even be worth your time. However, if you look down the page a little bit, you'll see that I took that $12,000 and increased the value of it a little bit. By raising the price of the property when I put a lease option tenant in it, I turned that $12,000 into $22,000 by adding $10,000 to the sales price. So I artificially inseminated my equity. If I get a house with $12,000 worth of equity in it, would it stand to reason to you that the smartest exit strategy for that house is not to try to get a cash buyer and get them a new loan and cash out? Now, most of you guys are relatively new, but can you see that? By the time I find the buyer, make payments on the first while I'm waiting, Probably pay some closing costs when I'm selling. The cost will eat up my equity, or a good portion of it. When you're going to buy houses like this, guys, and you get them for little or nothing, and they're ready to occupy, the fastest, easiest exit strategy, run a lease option ad, have them flood you with calls within a few days, have somebody bring you in several $1,000s and let them occupy the property, and you move on to the next one. And you gain a lot by doing that. You gain a great big chunk of your equity without having to qualify anybody for anything. And a $150,000 house could easily command $10,000 from a tenant buyer. Probably more likely 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that neighborhood. But it could just as easily get 10 if you do it correctly. We're going to discuss tomorrow. I mean, ask you, you put out $1,000, you get back $6, $7, $8,000 in a few days. What's wrong with that? In the meantime, you've got an asset that is depreciating and will lower your taxes. Plus, you've got an asset that is appreciating. You got monthly cash flow, most likely.
Rob, really, the truth of the matter is, on the pretty houses, in today's time, in today's market, even houses that are not in default, you can find $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 spreads just because the market has started to soften. So when the market softens, the sellers realize they can't get top dollar. Now, there's areas in the country that are going to be conversely to this. So you think about that. If you're finding a deal, like in this example, it's got $12,000 in equity, this is an every single day occurrence.
Yeah,
literally, we could leave this room and in 28 minutes go find a deal just like this and go get the deed.
Dime a dozen, guys. Dime a dozen.
You know, I want you to start thinking that there's massive equity spreads. And, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about discounting and the short sale process that would take a deal like this that doesn't really appear to be a deal and turn it into a $50,000, $60,000, or $80,000 back end.
Of course, now, clarification here, Jeff. This is not a short sale candidate, guys. Why? Because it's current.
Right.
Short sale is only applicable when they're behind on their payments. Question?
Yes, sir, please. I am new.
Got to give him a mic back there.
Okay.
Well, there's no mic man, so you're going to have to holler.
Okay. I am new to this. My question is, the guy holding $138,000, doesn't he have to agree with it?
Oh, of course. Are you talking about the seller or the lender?
The lender.
Oh, absolutely not. The lender has no choice in this matter, and that is a good question. Let's get it covered. Actually, we're coming to it anyway. There's a due on sale clause in that mortgage that gives the lender the right to call the loan due. And that's the only right they have. They can call the loan due. They cannot tell that seller what he can do with his property. It's unconstitutional. They can tell him there's a penalty if you sell it, and that is we can call a loan due. Good news is they won't call a loan due because they don't want houses. They want money. So they can, which is why you're going to get a CYA letter signed. But they won't. But if they do, it's up to you to make sure that you don't make promises that you can't keep. And so therefore you will never tell somebody, if the bank calls a loan due, I'll pay it off or I'll go down and assume it. Absolutely under no circumstances will you ever tell anybody that. So, the loan has a due on sale clause. Therein lies the opportunity that you guys can see that most others cannot. Knowing that the bank will not call the loan due, or they could, but knowing that they won't, or I should say they probably won't, all you have to do is disclose to the seller that you're not assuming the loan. You're not taking over, you're not paying off the loan. And if they agree to that, then you have done everything you promised. So if the bank does call a loan due later, does it affect your credit? No. Why? Because you didn't sign the note. You didn't guarantee the note. The bank won't be foreclosing on you.
I'll tell you an interesting thing that happened to me the other day, Ron. Lenders are really getting privy to what we're doing, which is good and bad. In this case, it was good. Negotiating a deal with the lender, and this happens to be a deal that was in default, and the lender asked me, said, do you have the deed to the property? So I was like, ooh.
I do that quite often, actually.
Is that a yes? You know, should I say yes or no? The guy said, no, I want you to have the deed on the house because I don't want to go through this whole entire short sale process and then find out that we've all worked our butts off and then find out we can't go get the deed from the guy.
Oh, I love it.
You know, they're understanding what we're doing, which in some cases is good, in some cases is bad. But, you know, guy was on my side that time.
Who's the mortgage company?
That was actually Equicredit.
All right. 257 is an easy one. 258 is also an easy one. The only difference is it has 2 mortgages instead of 1. Guys, is it just as easy to take over 2 loans as it is 1? Or do you need twice as much permission? No. There's absolutely no difference in the process taking over 2 loans as there is 1. It's the same deed. And just so, because you guys are brand new, understand that the mortgage on the property cannot affect the ownership of the property. The mortgage is a lien against the property. Mortgage has nothing to do with ownership. Ownership is controlled by the seller and the seller only, not the bank. The bank has a lien against that property as collateral. Therefore, the bank can't tell the seller what to do with the house. Of course, most people don't know that. And the truth is, who's ever had a mortgage burning party in here? It won't do you any good to burn the mortgage unless you burn the note with it, because the note is the one that gets you in trouble, not the mortgage. The mortgage is a collateral, is what attaches the note to the property. The promissory note is the promise to pay. The promissory note is what you get sued on, because you agreed to pay and you didn't pay. The mortgage is just an instrument that attaches the note to the property. So if you're going to burn the mortgage, make sure you burn the note, you know. And of course, it won't do you any good to burn the note unless it's paid off. So just wanted you to know, burning it does not cancel the debt. So on this example, you got 2 mortgages. And by the way, you will learn very quickly, the more mortgages the property has, the better the deal is. Why? Because of the possibility of discounts.
Got to be in default, though.
Or later. Well, even when they're current, I like them when they got a lot of mortgages, because at least there's a possibility that I can get a discount later. When they're in default, I mean, it's just more mortgages. When they're behind on their payments, I love it when they're in default. I mean, in fact, who back there just gave me the numbers on that house that you want to send us to partner? I shouldn't show you this. You won't send us the deal. The ARV is what? 700,000. House is in excellent condition?
Yes.
In Colorado?
It's actually in Utah.
Utah, okay. First mortgage?
538.
538. Second mortgage?
74.
74. Arrearage?
9 months.
9 months. Now look, I haven't even asked him what the monthly payment is, because I could care less. It has no bearing on this deal. None. All I need to know is it's 9 months behind. And incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, if the mortgage is 9 months behind and they haven't filed foreclosure on it, what does that tell you about the lender? They do not want this house. Lenders hate real estate. It's a plague to banks. It's a kiss of death. It causes all kinds of problems to them. But what do I see? What's going to happen to that $74,000 loan, folks? Well, you say it's going to go away. You say it's going to go away, but can you be assured of that? So if you can't be assured of it, should you first make promises you can't keep? And second, go firing checks at this property just assuming that mortgage is going to go away? No. So what's the only way you're going to get into this house? You're going to get the deed and give up how much money? None. Not a zippo. Do you know you could get the deed on $700,000 houses with the exact same process you can on 70s? It's the same piece of paper. This thing's 9 months behind. Now, I would imagine, Jeff, what do you see on the second? 5,000 tops?
Yeah, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. $7,000.
I don't see $7,000. I'll tell you why. Is there absolutely any chance that that second mortgage company is going to go foreclose and pay off that first? No. Why? Anytime you got a small second behind a big first, forget it. They're writing it off. They're not going to throw good money after bad. And if they're going to write it off, a few dollars from you is better than writing it off. So I'm telling you, I don't see more than $5,000 to buy that second just because it's got such a huge first underneath it. And so if I do that, I just created $69,000 more equity in the property, didn't I? And what do you think the chances of the first mortgage getting discounted?
What's the condition of the house?
What I haven't told you is that it's only got one bedroom in the house.
Oh, jeez.
How many square feet? 6,000? 6? Huh? 3,000? 3,000 square foot, one bedroom house. With no appliances in the kitchen. They've been stolen. And this is a brand new house, isn't it? It's never been lived in. I mean, wait till the lender finds out there's only one bedroom in this house and it cost $150,000 to fix it. About what it's going to cost, isn't it? No. $150,000 to fix it. So I'll bet you there's a real good chance we're going to get a big discount on that before it's over. And I'm telling you, I'm going to let Jeff teach short sales this afternoon. We're not going to have one dime in this house. And that's a perfect short sale example right there. Well, I'd like for it to be in worse condition, actually. I really would. I'd like for it to need more work, I think. But anyway, let's move on. So on page 258, you will notice that all we did was take over two mortgages instead of one. And if you look down through the bottom, since these examples are current, we don't have to worry about short sales here. We don't do any of that. We just simply easily get in and get out. Really, just get in and get out. In fact, John, is this one you gave me up here like that, or is it a short sale? I didn't. No, this is a totally different deal. All right. And example number 3. Here we go. Got a lot of equity. Seller wants some money. Example 1 or 2, seller wanted, well, in example 2, the seller wanted a little bit of money, didn't they? All we did was offer them less. As far as I'm concerned, getting a $230,000 house with $2,000 is getting in for nothing. I mean, that's getting in for nothing. You'll find that you probably will get in with no money more often than you will get in even with a little money. But if I can get a $230,000 house with $198,000 owed on it, knowing there's a first and a second there, and it's in excellent condition, and all I got to do is put $2,000, why would I do it? Look at the bottom. Look at my sale. Look at my exit. How many of you think you have a hard time getting much more than a $2,000 option deposit on a lease option on a $230,000 house? See, what I know is, if I have to put out 2 to get the deed, I know I can get back a minimum of 10, more like 15, in a few days on a $230,000 house as a non-refundable option deposit to put a lease option tenant in the house. If I know this, I don't mind writing a check for $2,000, knowing that in a few days later I'm going to get back 10 or 15 or more, as long as the house doesn't need any work. In the next example, it's got a mortgage, but it's got a lot of equity, and I can't get it all for free. Are you guys going to run across that? All the time. You remember that deal I just told you about, the $1.8 million? $1.1 million asking, $500 owed. How did we agree to pay him the other $600? I'll take over your existing debt, which we do intend to make those $3,800 payments starting in about 90 days. And I'll give you a second mortgage on the property with no payments and no interest, due when I cash out. In other words, I'll give him his money, but I'll give it to him when I get it. Is that fair? You guys writing? Because you're going to use this technique numerous times. So when you see a great big bunch of equity in the property, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just find out if the seller can wait for their money. Now, we got a case up here with John Brewer's deal where they cannot wait for their money. All right, John, we'll put the numbers of your house up here, and I'm going to tell them the problems. And then I'm going to tell them how we're going to overcome them. In fact, we pretty much already got them overcome because Ray Rock's already been on the phone with the seller. When Ray Rock gets on the phone with the seller, it's over. However, we didn't get what we wanted out of the seller. R, $1,500,000. First, $376,000. In fact, I hope it bothers you, because the more it bothers you, the more deals you're going to send us. Okay. Second, $68,500. Now, this lady is current. John says it needs about $10,000 worth of work. She needs cash, and she needs it bad, which means she owes about $445,000, I guess. Asking $850,000. That's her asking price. By the way, she gave John 2 appraisals for $1.5 million. So it ain't like she don't know what it's worth, is it? She needs out. And this baby's on an island with other houses. She needs out. So here was the problem. She needs cash. We tried. We'll take over your debt. We'll give you the balance when we cash out. She said, no way. I want cash and I want it now. It's the only reason I'm willing to give away the house for this price. Well, that puts a kink in the plan. So, in this particular case, Ray Rock got her on the phone and got her down to, in fact, what are you looking at here? About $400,000 worth of cash she's looking for, right? Ray pretty much got her agreed that she'd take $350,000. So the only way we're going to get this deal is to raise to $350,000 in cash. And of course, John's going to go out there, and if he gets that agreement in writing, and I don't know, I can't promise you he will, because a lot of things could happen between now and then. But if he gets that agreement in writing, we got no choice on this one, except for him to go raise the money by putting borrowing it against his home on a credit line. Now, he's not going to do that until we do our due diligence. I don't care, incidentally, how many appraisals the seller hands me. I don't even want to look at them, because I don't trust them. They're all bogus. They're all worthless. If the seller or the bank ordered the appraisal on this price house, I want you to ignore it. And if you violate that, I promise you, you're going to a seminar. You do not accept evidence created by the enemy. I can call 5 appraisers on this property and get 5 different answers with at least $250,000 spread any way I want it to go. And so can anybody else. Because that's how much leeway they got on houses like this, guys. Ignore the seller's appraisal. Put it in capital letters. And put it in your book. They might be right. According to John's comps, they're probably right. But I'm not going to accept them, and I'm not going to let him go borrow money and put it on this property until I absolutely know that it's correct. And even then, because it appraises for $1.5 million, does not give me any inclination at all it's going to sell for $1.5 million. So there better be a huge gap, and there is a huge gap here. And incidentally, if we get her down to $350,000, what does that do to our purchase price?
Why don't you have her go refinance the thing? She
won't refinance it. She don't want to hear anything about that. She wants out. She wants her cash. She wants it quickly. She don't want to talk. She's a realtor. She's not stupid. And the only way she's going to sell this house, and she knows she's going to get her $850,000, and she knows it ain't going to take her long. So you don't have all of those normal bargaining chips that you would have here. So
or you could bring in an investor who would take have them refinance it in their credit.
Well, we don't do that. I don't want any more partners. We got John and me and Ray already. And we don't need any more partners. As long as John can raise the money, we'll let him raise the money. That's because he don't have to give up an interest to do it. John will get 50% of this deal. Now the question is what we're going to do with it when we get it. We're going to prove the value, but with 2 appraisals. 2, not 1, 2. And we are not going to tell them what to appraise it for. You hear that, John? When we hire these appraisers, we're going to tell them to go out and tell us what the market value of this property is. We're not going to poison the appraisals so that when we come time to sell it, we don't have to worry about an overinflated appraisal that their lender can't find any justification for. In other words, we're not going to build a pipe dream here. We're going to deal with reality. And of course, we're going to have title check before we even do any of that. And then John's got to go out and inspect the property, make sure it doesn't have any functional problems and it doesn't need a lot of work and all that kind of stuff. He hasn't even seen, you haven't seen the house yet, have you? Have you? All right, this thing could be weird when he gets out there. We don't know. And it might even be weird enough to kill the deal. But you may ask, what are we going to do with it? Well, there's all kinds of options. Tomorrow we're going to talk about selling houses. In fact, I think Jeff's going to tell you about his round robin program that he uses. Auctions. Mm-hmm. Round robin auctions. And I'm going to tell you, and then Chris is going to show you his autopilot system that he's going to be teaching you all day Saturday. And I'll tell you what we'll probably do with it. We'll probably just have a regular auction. I mean, with a regular bona fide auctioneer. In fact, I'll take one down from Jacksonville down there, and we'll just have us an auction. Now, if I have an auction, will it sell for 1.5? What do you think it'll sell for? It don't matter what you think. It'll sell somewhere between 80 and 90% of the value. Is that about right?
That's
about 80. Yep. So we get 85% of the value. What is that? Somebody? 850.
About 1.2.
About 1.2 and a half.
Yep.
Okay. Just for the record, John, could we accept $1,250,000 on this?
I don't know, Ron. It'd be tough, but I think we might be able to handle it.
It'd be tough?
Yeah.
All right, well, since I'm the decision-making partner, the answer is absolutely yes. Well, that's just a what-if now. Remember, that money ain't in the bank yet. We might only make $350 on it. Who knows? You guys got a choice. You can work for peanuts or you can go for the big dollars. The only difference is how you condition what's located between your two ears and your ability to work without risk. In this case, we got some risk, I will admit, but I'm going to reduce that. That's why he's got me. I'm going to make sure he don't get himself in any minefields here. Okay. All right. Thank you, John. Let me use that as an example. Well, I don't know why I brought that. I brought that up because I worked my tail off, or we tried really hard to try to get that seller to take back that amount. That we were going to give him $50,000 just to show good faith. I mean, we could put that on a MasterCard and try to get her to take back a third mortgage for the balance, even on a short fuse, like 6 months or something, all due and payable, and go sell it. But she wouldn't go for that either. So in that case, we had to implement a strategy beyond the easy way. Normally, it's not that difficult. All right, let's move on. Page 260, getting the deed. Advantages and disadvantages right there. It's very simple. Get the deed, you get control. It's that simple. You own the house. But here's an advantage I bet you never thought about. When you get the deed, you own the house. Now, if you don't sell the house right away, if you put a lease option tenant in it, do you understand that you get to depreciate that property? You know what that's worth to you? So let me show you how to figure depreciation. It's real easy. Let's say you go out and get the deed on a $200,000 house, and there's $160,000 owed on it. Okay, what's your purchase price? $160,000. Got it? Your purchase price is the amount of the debt you take over plus any cash you put in it. But that doesn't mean you come out of pocket with $160,000, does it? What did you come out of pocket with? Zip. You just took over the debt, the $160,000. If I start with a $160,000 purchase price, guys, now I've got to figure out what the land is worth. Now, of course, that's anybody's guess. Your accountant will want to throw 15% of that purchase price at land. I think it's only worth 10%. That's my opinion. And unless somebody tells me different, I'm sticking to my opinion. The reason I want the land to be worth less is because you don't depreciate land. So, yeah? So if I take $16,000 off of $160,000, what do I got? $144,000? I got $144,000 depreciable asset. Now all I got to do is divide that by 27 and a half years. And that's how much I can go make on my job and not pay taxes on because I own that house. And that's about what? $5,500, give or take? I divide that by 27 and a half years. That's about $5,500 I can go make and not pay taxes on this year simply because I own that house. And that's probably at least $2,000, $2,500 worth of taxes I'm not going to pay because I got that $5,500 write-off. I keep getting that write-off every single year as long as I own that property. That's just one of them free bonuses. And it is free in this case, isn't it? You understand there's no other investment opportunity that you can do that with other than real estate. Put in no money, get depreciation. But I can see you really care about that, so let's move on here. You don't want to know how many taxes I had to pay last year. There comes a point when you just can't have enough property to depreciate your income. What are your target prospects? In fact, what is a pretty house? And here's where I got to dispel a misnomer, a myth. Listen to me. A pretty house is not necessarily an expensive house. The country's full of $75,000 pretty houses. Pretty doesn't mean expensive. Pretty means it doesn't need rehabbed. So don't equate big with pretty. And incidentally, are there $1 million ugly houses? You bet. In my opinion, anything that needs less than $5,000 worth of work is a pretty house. Anything that needs more than that is bordering on the ugly house business. I told you yesterday that in the pretty house business we take over debt. In the ugly house business we create debt, usually by getting a private loan. Today we're going to take over debt. And the more debt we can take over with the least amount of work, the easier it is to get through the deal and get the check in your hand. The last thing I want to see you guys get is personally guaranteed debt. I think you ought to get rid of that stuff as fast as you can. On your credit cards, on all your personal bills, and even on your own home. I'm a believer in having your home free and clear. I could just as easily make the argument for not having it free and clear if you take the money and use it wisely and grow it, know how to invest it. But this smart financial thing to do is to not own your home free and clear. Especially at the rate you can borrow it at and lend it out or invest it at. But the smart emotional and personal thing to do is to have your house free and clear. Especially if you're married. Because I can assure you the ladies want their house free and clear. And I would tell you, if you will work to get your house free and clear, it will improve your life. And I guarantee you'll get more sex, guys. Well, actually, I can't not make that guarantee. But
some people may be frustrated for life.
That's not a personal guarantee. Absolutely not. Fortunately, you get to choose, to tell you the truth. For example, John back here has got his house free and clear. He's going to go get a credit line, but is that credit line going to be a long-term debt that he's got to worry about sweating monthly payments over? No. We're going to sell the house, pay the money back. The house credit line will still be there. If he wants to use it later, he can. And incidentally, I do recommend you have a credit line on your house, even if it's free and clear, because you don't have the debt till you take the money out and use it. And with the training you're getting and you're going to get, I think you're at this level, even you beginners are totally aware enough now to make sure that if you use that money, you use it on something that produces more money. Remember, cash to asset, back to cash, as fast as possible. Many of you in your room right now could teach this course on financial management.
Pulling it free. Does your wife have to sign every time? She owns it with you. Does she have to sign every time you get a credit line or use the money?
Your wife does not have to sign on the credit line on your house the first time. Unless your wife is on the deed. Well, you're not going to be on the deed, and neither is she pretty soon. And actually, even if she's on the deed, all she has to sign is the mortgage, not the note. She won't sign?
She won't sign up. She wants that clear, free and clear.
Well, then There's nothing I can do to help you there. Are you saying, can you get a loan on an asset your wife owns jointly without her permission? No. No. Go get more assets or get new wife. Only two choices. Which one? The assets or the wife? Okay. All right. So your target prospects are any pretty house that somebody wants to deed to you. I don't care what price range. Any pretty house somebody wants to deed to you. However, don't forget you've got to have a reason for buying a house, pretty or ugly. And in fact, well, we'll get to it. It's part of the pre-screening today. High-priced houses. I promise you, high-priced houses scare the heck out of most of you, don't they? Well, all we got to do is figure out a way to eliminate the risk, or at least reduce it. Wouldn't you agree? Okay? If we can do that today, and if you get it from your head to your heart, it's going to make life easier to go out here and be looking for more zeros rather than less. And there are several ways to do that. Frankly, that's why Jeff and I love the short sale business so much, because it don't make any difference how high the price range is. We're not making payments on it anyway. Nor did we agree to make payments on it anyway. Nor do we even incline to the seller that we're going to make payments on. We just get the deed, get it discounted, and get it sold. With no costly entanglements there. And no responsibilities in the middle, because we didn't make promises we can't keep. And it don't make any difference whether a house is a $100,000 or a $5 million house. It's the same process. But the paydays are much bigger. But even when the payments are current, and even when you have to promise the seller that you're going to make the payments sometime in the future, I wouldn't be surprised that I couldn't show you a way to not ever have to worry about making monthly payments out of your pocket. And if I could show you that, would that eliminate your fear? All right? Well, we're going to get to it here in a few minutes. And I can show you. And it's easy to do. And it's real. And I hope you use it. There's, however, a downside to high-priced houses. What do you think it is? Limited buyers. Limited buyer. Holding costs? Perhaps. But limited buyers. Incidentally, when you're doing short sale deals, what are your holding costs? None. Well, I guess your taxes are accruing, but none. In fact, do you even insure properties you're doing short sales on? I don't. Do you? No? No. Because when you're doing a short sale, you don't even know if you're going to keep property or if it's going to come to a conclusion. I'm not going to buy insurance on a property. I don't even know if it's going to come to a conclusion. Besides, we haven't recorded the deed yet. So therefore, the insurance that the seller's got on it is still valid. All right. Well, what about that due on sale clause thing? In fact, you'll find the exact language on page 264. That is a Fannie Mae due on sale clause. And without taking time to read it right loud, let me just tell you, there's no way you're going to transfer any interest or any ownership in this property without it being covered by that clause. And that includes transfer and assigning the beneficial interest of a land trust. This clause has got nailed. Well, if that lender finds out that you're transferring ownership and they want to call the loan due, they can call the loan due. Now, I have probably done 600 or 700 subject to deals. And I have never had a loan call due because it transferred. But I'm sure on that first one you do, they're going to call it. Because it's you. And it's your first deal. And you've been thinking all this stuff is going to go wrong. So if you think hard enough, it'll probably come true. Is anybody in the room? First of all, how many of you in the room right now have gotten people to deed you their house for little or no money? Would you stand up, please? Stay up. And please let me point out to the rest of you sitting, this is a beginner's class for the most part. If it weren't, almost everybody would be on their feet. And even in this class, just take a look around and ask yourself, could Ron possibly have planted this many relatives in this room? Stay up just for a moment while you're up so that everybody can look around and see who they want to buy lunch for. While you're, how many of you that are standing have ever had a bank call a loan due because it transferred? Not one? Comment.
I spoke to the bank when I took my loan due.
Yep.
They told me all we want is the money.
Well, what a shock. That's correct. That's all they want. For all of you thinker brains and all of you skeptics in the room, you have two choices. Just believe me when I tell you banks hate properties, or don't get deeds on properties with due on sale clauses. How many of you in the room standing right now were absolutely convinced that nobody in their right mind would give you their property and leave a loan in their name? Raise your hands. Okay. Pretty much all of you. Now, what changed your mind? You went into the house and they actually did it. You just asked. Okay.
The easiest house we ever got.
The easiest house you ever got. And these are going to be the easiest deals you'll ever do. Thank you. You can sit down. I appreciate it. Give them a hand. Wait till you get out to the 4th of July celebration. And you have a whole bunch of students there that have been around for a while, and we call them up, and I get to interview them. And we have a parade of success across the stage. So wait till you see. This is real stuff, guys and gals. And it'll make you an awful lot of money. In fact, Jeff Collar, why don't you tell them where you came from a little bit here, because that's all Jeff does is get the deed. That's all Jeff's students do for the most part is get the deed. And we got a cook sitting up here.
If I can do it, anybody can. Isn't that right, Ron?
Pretty much.
All right. You always like to say that, so I'll just say it for you. Yeah, my real estate career was very cyclical. I started out in the rental business and started buying rental properties. And I really thought that's where it was going to be for me. I thought creating the equity by paying down these mortgages and letting all my renters make my payments for me was going to be how I was going to become a success. And in theory, yeah, that works for a lot of people. The challenge is a lot of people don't understand the cash flows that go with the responsibility of owning a rental property. So I never got a handle on that. I progressed into pretty houses, which I'm a big advocate of pretty houses. As a matter of fact, I really don't do any rehabs. So progressed into pretty houses and started selling all my houses on lease options. Immediately, that put my cash flow through the roof because I didn't have to make any more maintenance payments. After that, I started looking at houses that were in default. Because as I looked through my portfolio and houses that I had closed over the last 2 or 3 years, the biggest back ends all came from properties that were in default, that I could negotiate the debt and create huge equity spreads. Now my business has gone to a different level. All I deal in is very high price range executive homes that are in default. And here's why. When you're dealing with an executive house that's in default, you have absolutely no payments. You have no liability. You can create huge spreads. And here's the best thing about it. It's a numbers game. Did you know that you can go find any executive house, unless it's a dog, unless there's something wrong with it weird, like a 5,000 square foot one bedroom, or pools in the front yard, just something weird like that. It's a numbers game. You can look at this house going in and know that you can turn it based on the numbers going in. Now tomorrow when we talk about auctions, Ron's going to give me about 15 or 20 minutes. I'm going to show you how you can have absolutely no liability or risk on these executive houses if you pay attention to the numbers, you look at all the telltale signs going in. So that was a progression of how I started in the business. And so the back ends that are created, or when I say back ends, the cash at the end of the transaction, not equity, for me is a minimum of $50,000. The average is around $78,000. Think about each one of your deals bringing in $78,000 in cash. So do you think there's some merit in marrying expensive, high price range houses with houses in default? That's where it's at. That's where it's at. But the thing of it is that as I have this discussion with you right now, some of your eyes are, whoa, expensive houses. I don't know if I can do it. You can definitely do it. But why not spend the time on something that's going to produce a $78,000 check as opposed to something that's going to
Well,
$12,000?
Here's how it really works, guys. First of all, we don't just do short sales, and we do rehabs. In fact, you have two contradictory type of businesses right here in the room. Robin doesn't do anything but rehabs, and Jeff don't do rehabs. Both of them are doing pretty darn good. So don't feel sorry for either one of them. They have just chosen their modus operandi based on their experiences. I do it all. Donna and I and John do it all. You're out here generating leads. You should be able to harvest any lead that comes at you. And a lot of them aren't going to be in default. So I don't want you to get in a mindset now where you only do pre-foreclosures, or you only do rehabs, or you don't want to do rehabs, or you don't want to do foreclosures. I want you to be able to take whatever comes at you and harvest it based on how you can get in so you can get out. Got to get out, got to get in, got another way out before you get in. Because there's a boatload of money in pretty houses that are current. Like I just showed you on the one that John Brewer and I are doing. That is not in default. And there's a boatload of money on junkers that you're probably going to want to rehab, like I just showed you on the one that we're going to do on the one that John just got on Sunday. So expand your horizons and understand that this is a huge business with multiple streams of income within that business. And the better you get at harvesting whatever comes, the easier it's going to be for you to make the most money. Pretty soon you're going to be so smart your relatives won't even want to come see you.
Actually, a good point you made, Ron. Here's one thing I want to say about this. Where I'm at right now in my life in real estate, I get to pick the deals I want to do. So that's just my priority is to do those kind of deals. However, as I came up and understanding that all your leads are going to be bringing you different deals, you absolutely should be a full transaction engineer. Because if you don't, you're going to get a deal that's a rehab that's a $62,000 rehab that you could have done. So, I'm going to be biased to pre-foreclosures because that's my love. I just love those kind of houses. I love those kind of conversations. I love helping those kind of people. But I get to pick and choose because I'm to that point. So as you come through the ranks, understand that you really should be looking at all the aspects of this business because you want to be able to develop as much cash as you can. Well, the
question was, do you turn away lower-priced houses in foreclosure?
It depends on the equity spread. Most of my transactions are done in partnership, so we look for a minimum amount of equity so that the partner gets a certain check and we get a certain check.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on here then. Pre-screening. Can I buy with a due on clause? Yes. Can I sell them with a due on sale clause? Yes, as long as it's clearly disclosed and everybody's aware that the bank could call the loan due. Will the bank call the loan due? Probably. On yours, probably will. 267. Pre-screen. This is brand new. Nobody in this room has ever seen this before except Donna, who typed it. Under no circumstances are you ever to buy a piece of property, pretty, ugly, single family, commercial, apartments, land, whatever, unless you either get free equity the day you buy it or know how to create free equity shortly thereafter. You either get free equity the day you buy it or you know how to create it after you buy it. If I get free equity the day I buy it, it's because the seller is willing to give it to me. If I create free equity after I buy it, it's because I've either gotten good at short sales or I know how to release liens from properties and all those neat things that we're going to learn later if you choose to create that equity. Biggest one is short sales. I will tell you, however, the more liens and judgments and crap a property comes with, the more excited I get about it because the more money I'm going to make on it. I know how to take that lemon and turn it into lemonade without risk. For the sake of this boot camp, Jeff's going to he's going to go through the steps of short sale for you tonight so you can at least leave here with that. If you want to become an expert at that, there's plenty of opportunity for you to do it. Incidentally, for those of you who don't know, short sale is nothing more than discounting the loans that come along with the property. That's all it is. In fact, I've been doing short sales for 21 years. It was just that a couple of years ago, they called it short selling. We used to call it discounting. It's pretty much the same thing. I don't know what they're going to call it next year. When John and I buy this property, this seller has given us a bunch of free equity. It qualifies. I got some examples in the room here right now where the property is literally financed for more than its value with first, second, third, fourth stuff. But I know how to get rid of all that crap or discount it or remove it from the property to create that equity. So if I can see that, I can instantly spot a deal. Is everybody with me? So the golden rule is, get it free the day you buy it, or create it shortly thereafter, or don't buy it. Now, look down at the bottom of that page. If it's not in default, a short sale is out of the question. So if somebody wants to give you a property and their payments are current, you're not going to discount it after you buy it. That option has been removed because the payments are current. If the payments are current when you get the property, there's a real good chance the seller expects them to stay current as a condition for giving you the property. There's also a good chance you may have to make that promise that sometime in the future you will start making those payments. The only exception is when it's current and the seller point blank tells you, I'm going to walk away from this property. Help me if you can, but if you can't, I'm going to let it go. And at that point, you can turn it into a default by simply getting the deed and doing nothing until it becomes 3 or 4 payments behind, and then you start the short sale process. If you do that, you must do that with the seller's consent in writing.
Disclosure.
And we have done that. If the seller is going to walk anyway, and it's not ready for a short sale yet because it's not 3 months behind, we just let it sit until we can get the bank's attention. Because one of the first things you'll learn about short sale, until it's about 3 months behind, it will not go to the short sale department. And there's nobody at that bank who will talk to you about that property because it's not a problem property yet. And you'll also discover that this short sale requires an enormous amount of patience, which for many of you, that probably disqualifies the short sale from your life. You're going to quickly learn you're not going to get these banks to move faster than they're going to bank, and they don't give a rat's patootie what you want or who you are or how badly you need money. They're going to move at their own pace, and so you're going to have to move at the snail's pace with them. You're going to have to crawl like a snail just like they do until they get around to making decisions. And therein lies the big time lapse in many of your short sale deals. However, if you're patient, you'll get more deals rather than trying to cram it down the bank's throat. I just told you, Don and I closed on one 2 weeks ago that we bought in September. It took us that long to get the bank to discount a second mortgage. First mortgage already told us, go jump in the lake. Do you have a question? 125% loans? If they're actually current, the best thing you can do with that deal is find another one. 125% loan that is current is pretty much a waste of your time. You've got such a huge gap between what's owed and what you're willing to pay for it, your chances are not good enough to devote your time to it to make it happen.
Even a 120% loan that's not current, because there's such a big delta there. You've got to negotiate down so far.
Actually, you're true. That's what I meant. If it's current, forget it. Even if it's not current, I'd forget it. Yes?
On this deal that you just picked up here recently where the pharmacist deeded you the property, was he behind it on payments?
No.
And why did he do that?
He didn't want the property. It was ugly.
Okay.
He inherited it, remember? And it was current. And he was making the payments out of his pocket on a vacant, ugly house.
Okay.
And I don't care why he did it.
Yeah.
I don't even ask.
Yeah, okay.
I don't even.
So
I don't
he
even,
didn't care.
I don't even hear them when they tell me.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Doesn't matter, because that'll drive you nuts. You know that? Trying to figure out why people do the things they do will make you a raving maniac.
Those questions you have on the top of page 268,
Yeah.
would it also then be important to ask what type of loan it is?
I haven't even gotten that far yet. You're asking a question before I even give you the answer.
I'm just following
No.
your notes.
What type of loan?
Yeah.
Just let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish and you have your answer. Okay? So we're not buying property unless we get equity to know how to create it. Now we'll turn the page. On 268. Right at the top of that page are your 5 critical things that you must get before you can pre-screen. Now listen, please understand. Those 5 things are not what I need to determine if I want to buy the property. They are what I need to determine whether I want any more information on the property. The question she just asked would be something I might want to know if I want to buy the property. If it doesn't pass this 5-question test, I don't need to know what the payment is. I could care less. Nor do I need to know how old the house is, what color it is, how big the kitchen is, how many square feet it is, what's the neighborhood, what's the school. Who cares? I don't need all that worthless information on properties I can't buy. I don't have time for it. I don't have patience for it. I'm a reptile brain. I don't even want to know it if I need to know it. And since I don't need to know it, I certainly don't want to know it. In other words, close the book, don't open the book, I'm not interested. I don't even read the instructions to my cell phone. I'm sure not going to listen to all that crap about a house I can't buy. Reptile brain extraordinaire. So let's see if we can figure out. In fact, right there's your answers. Nothing else matters until the prospect passes this hurdle. Look at the 7 things that I can discover with just those 5 pieces of information. First, I got to have the ARV. Folks, you cannot make an intelligent decision about a piece of property until you get the ARV. And how am I going to get the ARV when you're on the phone with a seller on a pretty house? If I had your house appraised, what do you think it would appraise for? In fact, the question is right on 271 on your property information sheet. I think. Estimated values up there, but that's the question. If you had it appraised, what did it appraise for? See the stars on 271? See the stars? The stars incorporate all those questions. The stars are the critical questions. Don't even think about sending a property information sheet to the hotline if you don't have that stars filled out. So don't even think about sending a partnership deal in if you don't have this facts. And I can't tell you how many hundreds of times we get solicitations where the ARV is blank. The only possible answer we can give you is, go get the ARV, then let's talk. You don't get the ARV, nothing we can do for you. Nothing you can do for yourself.